from WCRS Studios in Greenwood, South Carolina, this is Meet Me at the Diner with your host, Ann Eller.
Oh, that's right. We're right here this afternoon. Yes, I'm Ann Eller. Yes, we're going to be having a good time here this afternoon, getting in the mood for the Swingin Medallions next Thursday at Lander. I feel very, very blessed here to have Richard Loper here. He's a longtime member of the Swingin Medallions. Got to hear his story, how he ended up in the Swingin Medallions. But we're here to honor them, to talk about them, and to be proud that we, right here in Greenwood 96 in our area, have great history with the Swingin Medallions. So how are you doing this afternoon, Richard?
Hey, Ann, I'm great. Glad to be here today.
Glad to have you here. Now, where are you playing this weekend? You got a gig or something?
We are heading to Waycross, Georgia for Swamp Fest. It's right there on the edge of the swamp, the Okefenokee Swamp. And somebody asked me earlier, they said, where is Waycross, Georgia? I said, it is way across Georgia. It lives up to its name. It's about probably about a 5 or 6 hour ride away from here. So, but it's always a great show there.
Yeah, well, I think people don't, when you get down into that area, it takes a good while to get wherever you're going. We used to live in Florida, and coming across there, it took forever.
It's one of those things where people say you can't get there from here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So how has the Swingin Medallions been doing?
We're doing great. It's that time of year where things are picking up, and we're playing lots of big outdoor shows and outdoor festivals. And so we're glad to be close to home for a change, because we've been Ocala, Florida. We've been Columbus, Georgia. We've been up and down the road 5, 6, 7 hours away. So it's glad to be playing in our backyard for a change. And it's been literally a couple of years since we've played Greenwood. People, when are you going to play Greenwood? Well, I don't know.
I got to ask you, why the fancy pants? I mean, I love them, but why the fancy pants? How did that start?
If you go back and look at pictures of the original band, they wore Madras plaid pants, they wore paisley pants, they wore seersucker pants, which were all kind of cutting edge for the day. And so it's kind of a throwback to those guys and a tribute to those guys, but also it looks good under the lights. When you go out by yourself wearing those pants, people look at you funny, like, are you a bowling team or something? But
on the stage, it looks
really
appropriate.
Yeah, but somebody asked me a while back. They said, "Who dresses you guys? Who picks your clothes out?" And I'm like, well, Ringling Brothers went out of business for a little while, and their stylist needed a job, so we figured, hey, we just hire them to dress us. So go from dressing clowns to dressing other clowns.
Well, how long have you been with the band? When did you start?
I started in 1986. I was a sophomore at Lander University, at Lander College at the time, and was in jazz band with this cool-looking kid with big bouffant 80s hair, looked like he was right out of the band Flock of Seagulls, and he played saxophone in the band. And he approached me and he says, my dad's got this little band, and we need a trumpet player, and you want to come to rehearsal one day next week and kind of sit in and see what you think? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I mean, I vaguely knew who the Swing Medallions were. I knew they had some hit records back in the day, and
that was back in the 60s,
yeah, back in the 60s, early 60s, mid 60s, and so I knew of them. I wasn't a big fan of them, but I liked beach music, and I liked dancing. Girls loved it. If you know how to shag, man, girls love that. So yeah, if that's what guys did back then, you learned how to shag, man. You get all the girls. So I had a little understanding of beach music, and spent a lot of time in Myrtle Beach, and so yeah, it was a good fit, and just kind of caught fire. But if it hadn't been for Sean, I'd be a band director somewhere right now, probably banging my head against the wall, counting the days to retirement.
But it's been a good ride.
Oh yeah, I would do it all over again. I have been all over the world and met lots of great musicians and lots of great friends, and a kid from Waterloo on Lake Greenwood. I mean, I think I've done pretty well. Just I would do it all over again. I really would. I wish I'd have gotten more autographs and taken more pictures of all the people that we met through the years, though, because when you're young and growing up and you think, this is never going to end, and there'll always be these people, and we've lost so many of those people through the years that I thought the world of.
Well, the other thing is today taking a picture with your phone is so easy.
Oh,
but
yeah.
When you consider back then, you had to get the camera,
Exactly.
take the picture.
And
It was a big deal.
And you hate to pester and bug these people because they're at work.
Right.
This is their job, and you don't want to pester them. But I'm flattered. when-
Who do you wish you'd gotten an autograph of or a
We
picture
played with all the Temptations throughout the years.
Oh, my gosh.
In one way or another. And there was a show at the Greenwood Civic Center. God, this was probably late.
The Greenwood Civic
Yeah,
Center.
that
Now
doesn't
that
li-
was a great place,
It
wasn't?
was. We miss it. We miss it. We wish we had something like that in
Yes,
Greenwood.
we do.
We don't have a good live music venue anymore. But they were playing in Greenwood, and they asked us to open for them. And
The Temptations.
The Temptations. And again, I was still a college kid at this point. I hadn't been
So
playing
in
in
the
the band very long.
mid-'80s or something,
And
80s.
Yeah, this is probably late 80s, maybe 88, 89, something like that. And so we're at the Greenwood Civic Center, and we've really been busting our butts, so we felt like we were worthy of playing with them. So we are on stage playing, and I look out the corner of my eye, and I see Melvin, the bass singer, standing beside the stage at the bottom of the steps with his arms crossed watching us. And he looks like he's mad. And I'm like, oh, my God, we've offended this guy. He hates us. And so I kind of kept looking over at him, and he would kind of nod his head every once in a while and tap his foot. I'm like, okay. So when we came off stage, I avoided eye contact with him. I walked past him. And in that big, booming baritone voice that you recognize on all their records, hey, you, come here. So I walk over to him real sheepish.
You knew you were going to get
Yeah,
whopped.
I'm like, oh, Lord, what have I done? So I walk over real sheepish with my head down. I'm like, yes, sir. He throws his arm around my neck, pulls me in tight. He says, y'all are pretty good for a bunch of white boys. And he starts laughing and giggling and just was the sweetest, nicest guy and had so many good things to say to us. And didn't have to, he didn't have to.
Right.
This guy he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right.
Sold millions of records. And here we are, a bunch of kids, up there trying to act like we know what we're doing. And he was just the nicest guy. And of course, it wasn't but just a few years later that he died. We lost him, I think, at age 55 or 56 because he had a lot of health issues through the years. He had very, very bad arthritis. He had been shot several times in an attempted carjacking when he was in California, and so he had a lot on his plate, and he was told several times to get off the road and didn't do it, and basically played up until the point where he died. And I felt so bad. And so anytime I hear his voice on his records, it gets me, it takes me back to that. And so
that is a cool memory.
That's something I'll tell my grandkids, 20 years from now or 30 years from now, whenever, hey, Grandpa, play with the Temptations, and they'll go, yeah, whatever.
And they'll go, who?
Yeah, my daughter's 24 and getting ready to graduate from Lander next month, and she already does that to me. I'll date myself by saying, somebody will be on the radio. The B-52s are on the radio, and I said, yeah, we used to play shows with those guys. Who? The B-52s? Isn't that an airplane? I'm like, yeah, but it's a band too. They're from right up the road in Athens. She says, never heard of them. She said, were there records on 78s? I'm like, the fact that you know what a 78 is probably the one good redeeming factor about this conversation. But she gives me a hard time because, typical, parents think their kids listen to garbage, and my parents probably thought I listened to garbage too. But I try to listen. I try to get her to listen to good music, and she'll kind of go, yeah, that's nice, Dad.
All right, yeah. So how was it though working for John McElrath?
He was a great teacher. Because he had done this for so long. And he was the driving force of the original band. He was kind of the guiding force and the guy that decided what they were going to do and how they were going to do it, and of course what music they were going to play and how they were going to dress, that kind of stuff. Of course, there were 8 guys in the band, but he was kind of the head guy from the get-go. And the fact that he basically raised his 2 sons in the music business, and so he treated us all like his sons because we all grew up together. Sean and Shane and Robbie Cox and Cos Weaver. Robbie and Cos are both music executives in Nashville now, and they credit John for knowing.
I understood he was a taskmaster. He didn't take any messing around.
Yeah, I can remember Cos, who, like I said, now a big time music executive in Nashville. Cos would be over there just screaming on the guitar, playing some loud rhythm thing, and John was like, Cos, this is not Van Halen, turn that down and do it like this. And so, but yeah, he was, I learned so much from him, and we all did learn so much from him. And he is still a driving force in the band to this day. And his son, Sean, is now pretty much running day-to-day operations of the band. And Sean will say something, and it's almost like John walked through the room.
Wow.
You know, because Sean is probably about the age now where John was when I started playing, mid-50s. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like, you know, we're all to that point now where John was in his career. And, of course, we lost John 7, 8 years ago now, 2018. And that was a big blow to the band because, like I said, Sean and Shane are basically taking their dad's legacy and trying to keep it alive and going with it. And it amazes me that people love this music from 8 to 80 is what we always say because it's
true.
It's timeless.
Fun.
It's timeless
fun.
music.
It's fun music.
It is fun music and has such staying power and has been redone and sampled in, you know, so many different ways. And some of the stuff I hear on the radio today, you know, I wonder if, you know, 20, 30, 40 years from now, if you're going to hear those songs. And I'm like, probably not.
Yeah. Well, you know, you wonder. We were out at Wesley Commons. We do a program for seniors and for children in the schools. Mm-hmm. And one of the gals, she does a great job of working with dementia people and playing music. And she's playing music that I think maybe she needs to update and move the music forward just a little bit because I think we should be into the 70s rather than into the 30s and 40s because I think, that time is moving forward.
But that's a great therapy for those people because long-term memory is all they have in a lot of cases. I lost my mom almost a year ago. It'll be a year in May. It'll be a year next month. And she could tell you things that happened 50 years ago, but couldn't tell you what she did 5 minutes ago.
Right.
And so you play a song.
Well, I have that problem too sometimes.
I do too. Every once in a while, I'll forget something. I'm like, oh God, here it comes. You know, I'm going to turn into my mom. But you know, the music takes you back to that time.
Oh. You know, and to see the reaction of people, we were in the dementia unit, and just to see them just sitting there and start playing music and see them start to come to life.
Yeah, they just light up.
It do, and it is just great. And how they can remember the words and sing the songs. It is terrific. It is terrific.
And it's funny that if you put something to music, you'll remember it forever. You know, like I said, I can remember song lyrics, and somebody will say a sentence. Somebody will just say something, and it turns into a song lyric. I'll start singing that song, and they just look at me like, really?
Yeah.
Some people do that with movie quotes. I do it with songs because that sticks in your head. And you remember the cartoons back in the 70s, Schoolhouse Rock? Mm-hmm. I still sing those stupid songs in my head. Noun is a person, place, or thing. You know, just to remember certain things. Conjunction, junction, what's your function? You know, and that stuff is coming back.
It is. Well, kids are going back to phonics, so that's part of it.
Thank God. Thank God. Yeah, some things, sometimes the old ways are the best ways.
Well, you know, sometimes you don't have to change things just to make something new.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. You know, I did want to mention that many people know that John McElrath died of Parkinson's.
Yes.
And this month, April, is National Parkinson Awareness Month.
That's awesome.
I think that's
particularly very appropriate that we're doing the concert this month in his honor and raising money for his and Jane's scholarship. And also the fact that we're dedicating the highway from Greenwood to 96, Highway 34, is going to be named in honor of John McElrath. And that was something that Adam Taylor is the vice president at Lander, who I went to school with in Lawrence High School, and his dad was a state senator in Lawrence for many years. And I knew that Adam had gotten a road named after his dad there in Lawrence, and so I called him up a few years ago. I said, Adam, what's the process of getting a road named after somebody? He says, what do you got? What you got on your mind? I said, John McElrath needs a road named after him. I said, he got the Order of the Palmetto, the highest civilian honor in the state of South Carolina before he died.
Mark Sanford
he
gave
did.
that.
Mark Sanford did that.
Governor.
For him.
Yep.
And so, you know, and you know, he's been dead long enough where I think any skeletons he had in his closet have all fallen out by now, so it's safe. But you know, and he says that's a no-brainer. He says he done.
And there's a road between Greenwood and 96 not named for John Drummond that was available.
Well, he's got a few bridges I've seen that I think the bridge right there at Buzzard Roost is named after his wife. So,
right, yeah.
So yeah, she can have the bridge, but we got the road. So anyway, I just thought that would be pretty cool to do that. So Adam and I started talking about that, and we brought in Senator Billy Garrett, and he was a great help. And so it's a process. It has to literally go through the state legislature and has to be made into like a bill and presented. And Richard Whiting from the Index Journal was a great help. He put together a lot of articles and things that, from over the years that included John.
Right. And I didn't know that John had been the former youth director at the Greenwood Y.
He was. I've had so many people approach me going, John was my coach, and
I didn't know. I never knew that. Yeah.
And a lot of people credit him for bringing soccer to Greenwood, because soccer, back in the late 60s, early 70s was, that's what they do over in Europe. Nobody knows what soccer is over here.
Why do you want to play soccer?
Soccer? We got football. Soccer's for wimps,
Right, exactly.
Yes, but I think I've had several people tell me that he was one of the first guys to really start teaching kids how to play soccer.
Yeah.
And so, now you got the Toros here in Greenwood and all these other youth organizations that teach soccer. And I always think that's pretty cool that he loves kids. He always loved kids, and God, he had to love kids to take a bunch of kids on the road like us, because like I said, he was an established musician with hit records, and here he is with a bunch of kids in high school and college traveling with him.
Well, you told me that it was, when you got involved, it was kind of a time changeover. There were older members that were wanting to get out,
Yep.
and there were new members coming along, and Sean was doing it. Is that how this happened?
Sean and Shane wanted to basically take the band and run with it, and John was kind of skeptical, I think, at the time, and he's like, well, let's get some other guys and put something together and see how it works. And so for probably close to a year or more, we were the Double Shot Gang. We were the opening act for the Swingin' Medallions, and the slave labor that set up and tore down the equipment.
The roadies.
And the roadies. Yeah, we were the roadies. So we did that for about a year. So we paid our dues. I mean, we learned a lot just doing that, just traveling and seeing what kind of work ethic we had, I think, was more than anything. And that was the thing with John, is you better have a good work ethic. You didn't just show up and think that you're going to get away with, halfway doing something with him, because he would call you out and he would embarrass you. Not publicly, but I mean, he would basically say, I'm not happy with you. And that was the other thing too. The band was his baby. If you did anything to embarrass yourself or the band or him, you're going to part ways. And it was basically known that especially if you did something, immoral or illegal, or, you got arrested or did something stupid,
What about just being wild and crazy like Hack?
Well, that was expected. I think that was expected. If you're a musician, I think there's a certain amount of that you have to kind of accept and realize that's just Hack being Hack. But yeah, Hack was a wild man. Hack was a legend in his own time, for sure, and a legend in his own mind too.
Yeah, exactly.
And Jake, his son, is basically taking up his thing and run with it. So Jake's a great musician. He played with the band for a good many years. But now he's kind of doing his own thing. I think just the traveling was getting to him, because he's got his own little master race. I think he's got 7 or 8 kids now.
Exactly.
So who has time to travel when you got that many kids?
Well, that's true. So, so they're going to name this road for John McElrath. Is it, as you drive across it, is it going to play a double shot of? I mean, can you arrange that so when
that'd
you
be kind of
drive
cool
that,
if you had like a little small FM modulator thing that would force you to listen to it as you passed by.
Right.
Kind of like these Christmas light things where you drive through and they tell you to tune to this frequency to listen to. Yeah, we need to do that. But you might be onto something.
Okay, add that to it.
As soon as you pass the cheeseburger house, it's automatic. You're going to hear double shot.
I think that would be pretty darn cool. So, so as you have traveled with the band, now I understand you were in the band, then you got out, then you got back in.
I left for a little while when I played from 1986 till 2001, pretty much full time. When my daughter was born, we were really, really, really on the road a lot. We were sponsored by Coors at that time. We were going out west a good bit. In fact, the week before my daughter was born, we were in Palm Springs, California. Got home on Sunday. She was due on Monday. She was born on Tuesday, and Friday I had to go to Las Vegas to play Caesar's Palace with Brooks and Dunn for a Coors thing out there. And I was miserable. I'm just like, I don't want to do this. So I told the guys in the band, I'm going to go do something else. And so I left the band on good terms and came back and played with them on a regular basis. I would just show up and just play a set with them sometimes from time to time. But went to work for Toyota for 15 years. I was internet manager at Ballantyne Toyota for 15 years.
The internet manager.
I was internet manager.
Was it really huge back then?
It was just really getting started. In fact, they approached me and said, "Hey, we're going to start selling cars on the internet." And this was 2001. This was unheard of. Now, Carvana and all these other guys are killing it now, but back then it was kind of unheard of. And so they're like, "Yeah, at some point there probably won't be any more car dealerships. We'll sell cars like we do pizzas, and you just stick it in their driveway and give them the keys." Didn't quite turn out that way, but it was everybody shops on the internet, but I think they still go to the car dealerships. But it was fun. I had a lot of fun, had a good time, learned a lot. But just dealing with people came pretty naturally to me because again, John told us treat your fans well, treat the people around you well because these are the people that pay your bills. If they don't come see you play, you're going to be flipping hamburgers at McDonald's or doing something else. So. These are little pieces of gold standing in front of you. They're the ones writing your paycheck for you, not me.
Did you ever have a plan to be playing in a band and doing that? What was your plan when you were in school?
Well, I was studying to be a music teacher.
Music teacher?
I was studying to be a music teacher. I was music education major at Lander University or Lander College at the time.
Did you finish?
I did, but I never taught. Never taught school. And my mom taught school for 40 years, and she was always like, when are you going to use your degree? When are you going to start teaching? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And so I think at some point I just didn't think I had the patience. Now, I would still go help local school bands from time to time. And, like I said, I went to Lawrence High School, graduated from there. And I'd go back and help out with their marching band during the summer and go do little clinics and teach them lessons and things like that. So I still like working with the kids. So I still did some teaching, but I didn't make a career out of it.
Right.
Like I said, my daughter's graduating from Lander next month, and she wants to teach second grade, which would thrill my mom because Mom taught second grade for 40 years, and Mom always said, well, at least somebody in this family is going to use their teaching degree. So.
Well, that is pretty cool. Well, we are going to take a quick break. We are here with Richard Loper. If you have a question or something you'd like to say, 864-229-7984. You can text me, 864-229-7984. You can make a comment. We are live on Facebook right now, and we are having a good time here just enjoying the Swinging Medallions. If you are on our Facebook Live, you're going to hear some music. If you are on the radio, you will hear a commercial break. We will be right back. Don't you go away. That's right, a double shot of my baby's love. Oh, we're having a good time here. We got people commenting on Facebook Live. Billy Smith says, enjoying the conversation. Richard and Tracy is saying, great conversation here this afternoon.
Great. I'm glad they're enjoying it.
Yeah. I think there's nothing better than reminiscing about the past because the future is too scary.
I think that's why people like this music, because it kind of takes them back to their past a little bit and it lets them reminisce about what they were doing when they first heard this music.
One of the phrases I hate to say more than anything else, and I seem to say a lot on the radio, is used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Back in the good old days.
All right. No, I used to, and I just hate it. And then I go, well, just go with it, Ann. Well, you said you had a good story about how John and Jane met.
Well, the history of the band, all those guys went to Lander College. I keep wanting to say Lander University. It was Lander College back then. It's kind of hard to flip back and forth.
Before that, there were Lander Lilies.
Exactly. Well, they had just gone co-ed, and so they were really trying to encourage guys to come to school there. And so
they were a desired commodity.
Exactly, because I think it was about 10 girls to every guy back then, which was a very what they call in the military a target-rich environment. So here they are, and they started this band basically. And here they are, a bunch of kids right off the Mill Hill in '96, basically, and they're at Lander. And they're going to college, and a lot of those guys, if you didn't go to college, you went to Vietnam,
right?
And so they're in college, so they're not going to Vietnam and staying in class. But anyway, they decided to have a band to make a little money and get some girls, and that, kind of the thing that you want to do when you're in college. So anyway, they had a little success at this point, and they had some records, and they're traveling some, but the records had not hit at this point, I don't think so. They're at Lander, and they're hanging out in front of Chipley Hall, which was basically the girls' dormitory back then, and watching the fresh crop of new girls come in. And they're all kind of out there leaning on their cars going, yeah, I like that one. I'm going to get that one. I'm going to take that one out. And so this long black Cadillac pulls up with a uniformed driver driving it. And this little Southern Belle gets out of the back of it. Pretty girl, gorgeous girl. Jane was always a gorgeous woman all her life. But anyway, she gets out of the back of this Cadillac, and John's like, that one's mine. And all the other guys in the band are like, yeah, right, you'll never get her. She's unattainable, she's just too good for you. And he's like, you watch this. So he said, it took me a little while, but I got her. But Jane's family they were tobacco farmers down in Mullins, and her dad also ran the bank there because, the farmers basically had their own bank, had farmers and merchant type banks there. And he didn't like to drive. And so he had a driver. And a Cadillac, big long Cadillac, and so he just sent her up to Lander in the car, and so here she pops out like royalty, and they're all like, wow, so that was kind of how Jane and John got together, but
and they never wrote a song about that.
I was always thinking that would be a good thing for at least a country. I'd make a good country
song for sure. Right. Yeah,
but yeah, all the guys, like I said, they went to Lander back then, but they couldn't quit school. Even when they had all their success and had all their hit records, they go off and do American Bandstand on the weekend, be back in class on Monday. And so they couldn't quit school because they get sent to Vietnam. So they go out to California on the weekend to play a TV show out there called Where the Action Is, which was kind of a West Coast version of American Bandstand. And so they played a show, everything goes real well, and then their manager says, okay, guys, while you're out here, you got to play a birthday party. Birthday party? We got a hit record. We don't play birthday parties. They're like, you'll play this one. Tina Sinatra saw them on TV and said, Daddy, I want them to play my birthday party tomorrow. And so they were summoned to the Bel Air Country Club to play for Tina Sinatra. And there's Frank Sinatra and Milton
How about that?
Milton Berle was the MC. And so, here, like I said, here these country boys are, straight off the Mill Hill playing at the Bel Air Country Club with all these famous people around. They said, everywhere you look, there's Dean Martin, there's Sammy Davis Jr., there's just famous people everywhere.
What an experience.
Yeah, and Jerry Lewis, they said, everywhere you look, famous people. And they said, so they're doing a sound check, getting ready to play, and the guitar amp that they have just basically self-destructs, explodes on stage. Jimbo Dores, famous for playing just, whatever he had to play. And they're like, oh, God, what are we going to do? And they said, Frank Sinatra said, I'll be right back. He makes a phone call. 20 minutes later, 2 brand new Fender Twin state-of-the-art amplifiers show up on stage. Now you can play. So they play the show. Everything goes great. After the show, what do you do with the amps? Oh, they're yours. You take them. I said, oh, yeah, by the way, you kids need to quit school and come work for me and my record company.
Wow.
And they're like, oh, Mr. Sinatra, we can't quit school. We get sent to Vietnam. I wouldn't let that happen to you guys. I'd keep you here. I'd find a way to keep you. And they're like, nah. At the time, they were real skeptical. But looking back on it now, he probably could have kept them here.
Right, probably.
But yeah, those
So
guys
they came back to South Carolina.
came back to South Carolina with,
Were there any pictures? That's what I need to
I'm
know.
sure there's
Did
some
you ever
pictures.
see any pictures?
I'm sure there's some pictures somewhere. I see pictures all the time that people pull out and had in their personal collection that they find. And so anybody listening, if you have any great pictures of the old original band or any of the bands through the years, send them to us. We'd love to have them. We'll post them on Facebook, and we'll give you the credit for them for sure. But yeah, there's great pictures out there of the old original band, and some of the clothes that they wore were just hilarious. There's a picture that I saw a while back of the band in the 70s. It had these huge bell bottoms with these fringes all over the sleeves and the arms and the legs and all that. Look like one of Elvis's old jumpsuits from back in the 70s or something, but. So, yeah, the band through the years has had some questionable
Did they ever play with Elvis, do you know?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think Elvis ever played with anybody else. He never had any opening acts. I think he just thought that he was the one and only thing. And, of course, he had great musicians behind him. He had the Sweet Inspirations and the J.D. Sumner and the Stamps and, had all these other groups that kind of he basically included in his band. But, no, they never crossed paths as far as I know. Now, there was a time – I was always amazed at the number of bands that they did play with through the years. We're playing in Athens, Georgia, the Athens Country Club, before a Georgia-Tennessee football game. And we're in the basement in the men's locker room getting dressed. Not a very, very glamorous dressing room by any means. And Louis Grizzard is playing cards over in the corner, and he's had plenty to drink. He's in a good mood. And the booking agent comes downstairs. And he says, there's somebody upstairs. There's somebody famous here, but you can't say anything. You can't say anything to him. You can't speak to him. Don't make a big deal about it. But he's upstairs, and you'll see. I'm like, Louis is sitting over in the corner playing cards. Oh, man, he's way more famous than Louis. Well, who are you talking about? I probably shouldn't tell you. And John McElrath says, who is it? I don't know if I ought to tell you. Well, John says, tell me.
Right.
He says it's Kenny Rogers. Well, you tell Kenny Rogers I said to kiss my behind, something like that. He probably said it a little more than that. But
right.
About that time, Kenny Rogers turns the corner. He says, "I heard that, John McElrath. You kiss my, you know what?" And they hug and shake hands, and turns out they're old friends.
Real,
because they had played together when Kenny Rogers was with First Edition, and they crossed paths over the years and knew each other. I'm sitting over there with a mouthful of toothpaste going, holy moly, it's Kenny Rogers, I was starstruck. And, he's just like, it's just another guy, And that was the thing about John was he didn't get starstruck. And, he figures, he puts on his pants just like I do. But yeah.
It is amazing, the time frame that was there from the mid-1960s,
The band started in 62, Double Shot hit in 1966, Hey Hey Baby 67, 68, and so mid-60s was their heyday.
So, and you just think about all the people, and you're just mentioning a few here on the air that they crossed paths with and everything.
Played with James Brown in Fulton County Stadium when Fulton County Stadium opened in 1965.
So you see my James Brown right here. I feel good.
Oh yeah,
Ernest Lee did
Love
that.
Some James. But, they were opening Fulton County Stadium in 1965. They had just got the Braves to come to Atlanta, and they said, we want the biggest white group of the era, and we want the biggest black group of the era. And, they were trying
What a distinction.
They were trying to keep it local. Well, they still literally had the rope down the middle of the stadium back then.
Really?
It was still very segregated. This was Atlanta, Georgia, 1965. And so James Brown plays, and he's not happy because they make him play first. And then
he was the king. He probably felt he should have,
And then I think Swingin Medallions played after that, and they were talking about just a capacity crowd, but it was just split down the middle. And it just took years for that rope to disappear. Late '60s before the rope came down, I guess. But just landmark things like that. That kind of. That's music history, but you never hear about it.
You're true.
Well, it was not a great time to be. White or black, playing together, I guess. They felt like, everything was very racially charged back then, and that, you had riots and things going on all around you, and they were forced segregation into the schools or integration into the schools. So it it was a time that we didn't.
But it's still
I
a
didn't-
time, it still happened.
Sure.
And it still is something to reflect back on and see where we're at today.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think from that standpoint, it is totally amazing. But I actually never really had the opportunity to interview John a couple of times, and it's just his Parkinson's and
Yeah.
everything wasn't. But what great stories! What great stories!
Louis Grizzard and he were great friends, and Louis wrote about the band in a lot of his books, and he and Louis had talked about writing a book together about the band over the years. And the running joke was, if Louis had not died when he died and finished the book, that we'd probably all be divorced or bankrupt, or he'd be telling
too many stories.
He'd be telling all our secrets, and we'd all be in trouble or in jail. But yeah, Louis was a great friend of the band, and we played for him on several occasions at his home, and played some parties for him through the years. And like I said, he and John were real tight. But of course, Carol Bledsoe wrote a great book about the band too, and you can find that book online. I used to send people to McCaslin's bookstore, but it's not,
I know,
not there
we miss
anymore.
McCaslin's.
But you can find the book online. It's called A History of the Swingin' Medallions, and Carol did a great job with it, and he tells a lot of those stories that I'm kind of butchering right now. Carol's probably listening to me going, "That's not how it went. That's not what he said."
Well, when you're playing, I would think one of the things would be the fans that come to see the band and maybe remember it from years and that. And I've been at plenty of concerts where somebody will sign an album or somebody. What do people bring for you guys to sign?
I have signed a lot of albums that I didn't play on, for sure. The original album still floats around out there. In fact, I've been told that it sells online for close to $100 now. People
Wow.
that collect records tell me that that's a tough one to find. It was on a couple of different labels. It was on Smash, and I think Mercury bought it. And then the band had their own record label called For Sale, the number 4 Sale. Mm-hmm. And so Smash was the same label that James Brown recorded on. So.
James Brown actually played with Mac Arnold before he became famous.
Yeah.
He used to take a bus from Augusta over to play on Greenville. He'd get off the bus, and Mac tells the story of him straightening himself up and walking in,
Yeah.
And then he had his hit song, and he goes, "I'm not going to be back anymore." And Mac says, "Damn if he wasn't."
I'm told you think John McElrath was tough to work for, or Taskmaster, or whatever. I'm told that James Brown would crack the whip. And
I've seen some stories, some documentaries of him.
Well,
yeah.
you'll see film of him and videos of him, and he's counting 5, 10, 15, 20. And they said he's not just counting; he's docking the band.
Right.
If somebody hits a wrong note or misses a step, you're going to pay for that. That's going to come out of your pocket.
Right. And always had to dress nice because you never knew when an opportunity was going to come up, because they'd get on the bus and they go, why do we have to wear these monkey suits or whatever?
Exactly.
And he'd say, because you never know when you're going to have an opportunity.
About years ago, we had a green Eagle bus that constantly stayed in the shop. It was a money pit. We loved having a bus, but man, they're expensive to operate. But our bus stayed down at Lewis Bus Lines in Augusta, getting worked on all the time. James Brown's bus basically lived there. That's where he kept it.
Right.
And he had a blue Eagle, and we had a green Eagle. And they sat side by side, torn up a lot of times. And James Brown's band, they said they'd come in 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to open up the bus place, open the gate, and James's band would be asleep up against the fence, waiting to get on the bus to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And I came in one time, and they were loading up a big crate full of parts. And the owner of the bus company said, "Yeah, James's bus is broken down out west somewhere. I think it was actually up in the Midwest. I mean the Northwest, somewhere up around I forget where he was. I think he was close to Seattle actually, and they were shipping parts out there to fix the bus. And I said, they don't have bus parts in Seattle. And he says, actually, my mechanic's going to fly out in a couple of days and fix the bus.
Oh my God!
And he says, no, there's just nobody out there that'll do it on credit for James. But he loved James. I mean, they talk to each other like dogs. I mean, they cuss each other and just sit there and call each other all kind of names. And they sit there and laugh and hug, And they said that was one of the few people that could get away with talking to James like that. But they loved each other. Talmadge Lewis. His family is the Lewis family from Lincolnton, the gospel
Right.
bluegrass group. And he's a great fiddle player, but he got into the bus business, and like he said, he kept our bus alive through the years. And like I said, he babysat James's bus and kept him going up and down the road for a lot of years.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. Well, we've had some mess. Let's see, Tracy. Let's see, Billy Smith. I saw the. Let's see, where did it go? Billy Smith. I saw the guys perform wearing those jumpsuits with long hair. They were they were unrecognizable from their playing days at the Old Hickory in the summer of 1964 in Panama City Beach, Florida. How about that?
That was their stomping ground back then. That's probably when Double Shot really took off, because they played Panama City Beach and played Birmingham, Alabama, and played down in that area a lot. And they had actually made that record just to sell at shows, just to have something to sell the fans.
Right.
And a DJ named Rod Roddy in Birmingham started playing it, and it picked up and went from there. So this was a record that was basically just made just for fun and just made it sound like a party. So the record company got involved, and they wanted them to go in and make a good, clean recording of it,
right.
you know, and in a studio. And they hated it. They said, that doesn't sound like us. That's just, you know, it was too clean. It didn't sound like a party.
Didn't have the life.
They wanted it to sound like a frat party, basically. And so they went to Arthur Smith Studios in downtown Charlotte and literally pulled people off the streets to hoop and holler and yell and make it sound like a party. So if you ever hear that song on the radio, pan it left to right, and you'll hear all the music on one side. You'll hear all the voices on the other side. That was their idea of stereo back then.
Right.
And they actually had to go back and make a different version of it. WABC in New York City would not play that record because they had the word hangover in it. Worst hangover that I ever had.
Right.
So there's actually a version of that song that still floats around out there that you'll hear from time to time that says worst morning after that I ever had. And it just amazes me that the word hangover was considered taboo back then.
Right.
When you hear the stuff that's on records now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we had another one, Barry McNally. Been a fan since '64 and have had the honor of introducing the band on stage more than a dozen times. Love them all. Joey Roberts, WSGN Radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's great.
Yep. Party band. Then he said Party Band of the South. We've had quite a few comments here this afternoon.
And Louis Grizzard hung us with that moniker, the Party Band of the South thing. That's
Right.
how he would always introduce us. And so it stuck. But that's something that started just in the last 25, 30 years, I guess. The Party Band of the South thing that was Louis Grizzard's thing. He started calling us that.
You know, one of the things that I want to mention that as far as I'm going to say some charity work is playing for the Burton Center for their proms that they have. It is, I had the privilege of going to this last one. Most fun ever.
That is the most appreciative crowd that we ever play for. I mean, they dance from the first note to the last note, and they are just in it 100% from the beginning to the end. They really are.
And some of them just stand there and just stare at y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so fun. You just look up and standing right in front of you, just standing
We love
there.
doing it. We do it every time they ask. We say yes. I mean, they do such great work there. Such great people working there. We'll do anything we can to help those guys. So that's something we do anytime they ask us. And they didn't get to do it for so many years because of COVID.
Right.
I mean, how are you going to ask those people to social distance when they because they if you see them, they're going to hug you.
Absolutely.
They want to shake your hand. They want to hug you. They want to make a picture with you. They want to get on stage and sing. We let them do what they want to do. I mean, we don't let them do anything dangerous, but you know, if they want to get on stage and dance, come on on up.
It was totally a fun night.
Always is.
And I think, you know, that is the thing that you can always say if you go to a Swingin' Medallions concert, party, you are going to have fun.
If you're not dancing, we're not doing something right. And as much as I love playing some of the venues we play, some of them kind of like Newberry Opera House. We're going to be there next month. If you want to see us and you miss us here in Greenwood, come over to Newberry and see us next month. I love Newberry Opera House. It's an awesome venue. People get up and dance in the aisles.
Right.
And I think some of the people at the Newberry Opera House look at these people like, what are you doing? You know,
Sit down.
You're supposed to sit down. You know, sit down. You're not supposed to be dancing. But yeah, if you're not dancing or standing up, then we're not doing something right. You know, we don't feel like we're doing our job.
Right. And all the antics that I guess I haven't seen the trumpet player doing too many antics, I don't think.
I used to spin my trumpet a lot and throw it around, but the trumpets cost too much now to do as much of that as I used to do. But I'll do it every once in a while. But yeah, we have a good time. We dance, and everybody's like, who does your choreography? I'm like, we kind of make it up, and hey, that looks good. Let's all do that, you know.
Right.
So, but yeah, the choreography is something people ask about all the time because the band moves. If we stand still, I think we'd blow up or explode or something. We have a good time, and I think we have more fun than the crowd does a lot of nights.
Well, now, who is in the band? Let's see. Next Thursday, you are going to be playing at Lander. This is a really big event. It's a big event. Number one, the money raised here will go to the scholarship fund. That is for John and Jane McElrath. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. We wanted to play Greenwood.
We wanted to do something that would benefit them, so this worked out perfectly.
So that's going to be going on. Now, that is, what time is it? 6, 7. Let's see. I had asked that question, and I should have it right here too. But
I want to say, let me look. I've got it
7 to 9 p.m.
Right,
at Lander Phineas Horn Arena will benefit the university's John G. and Jane B. McElrath Scholarship. General admission tickets are $20 each and are available at lander.edu/medallions. And this is going to be great. So we've got that going on. You can purchase a table. Adam Taylor is in charge of that. So you can call him at 864-388-8195. They're going to be dancing. They're going to pay tables up front. What else can we say about this?
We've had a lot of people ask how they can support the cause. Maybe they live out of state or they can't come or they're just not available that night. You can still support the scholarships by going to lander.edu/give. lander.edu/give, and make sure that you make a notation that it's for the McElrath Scholarship. And if you don't like going online and giving your money away, we'll take your money by check. So you can send a check to the Lander Foundation, and again, make that attention, McElrath Scholarship. And the address is 320 Stanley Avenue, Greenwood, South Carolina, 29649. 320 Stanley Avenue, Greenwood, 29649. So you can still give and support the scholarship. We really don't have a goal in mind. We were talking today and said, hey, it'd be great if we get $20,000 toward this scholarship. I think we're maybe, I'm not supposed to spit out numbers. They've told me not to, but I'm going to say we're probably pretty close to halfway there.
Well,
but yeah,
great.
You guys can put us over the top, and I'm not saying that you probably couldn't show up Thursday night and get in with $20. So they're trying to do all this in advance so they can control, seating and all that stuff. But yeah, if you can grab a table from Adam. We hope to have a lot of people there. I'd love to see that's a big arena.
That is a big arena.
You put 1,000 people in it, it can still hold another 1,000. So hey, the more the merrier.
I think it's like 3,500 that it actually will hold.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. So
we got Ben Carson coming this Friday.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's a huge event area. And, someone that has benefited from the scholarship is Ben Bagwell, and he's a junior vocal performance major at Lander. And he really has taken it to heart, the responsibility of getting this scholarship.
He is so talented. Lander is so lucky to have him. He actually started out at Furman, had a full scholarship to Furman, and went there for a little bit, and then decided he really wanted to get out and perform. And so he actually went to Dollywood and sang at Dollywood for a few years and was in their a cappella group, and just is an amazing kid, just a great guy, but a great musician. Now his dad, Joey, and I went to Lander together. Joey was a music student there, and he's now a music teacher and a band director in '96. Mm-hmm. His mom, Monique, is the professor at Lander. She teaches speech and drama. And so, I mean, the kid's got genetics. I mean, he had,
on his side.
he had no choice to be a musician, but Lander is so lucky to have him, and I'm so glad that he was able to take advantage of that scholarship and that it was there for him. He's very, very worthy of that. And so, but yeah, you're right. He takes it to heart, and he really makes a big deal out of the fact that he feels blessed to have been able to use that scholarship to pay for his school.
Sure, and you see him around town at Christmas time and
Oh, yeah.
everything. He was part of a barbershop quartet that was doing very nice music.
And that's something he started all by himself. Nobody really said anything about it. He ran into some friends there at Lander and said, hey, we'll do some barbershop. And he picked 2 or 3 guys, and they kill it. I mean, they're great. They're really, really good. They're tight and very professional. But, he loves getting out in the community and performing, and he does a lot of theater work. And so, I mean, he's got the opportunity to go far in his life as far as his music.
Well, this is what it's all about, and on top of that, they're going to dedicate the road.
That's right. They're going to unveil the signs Thursday night and dedicate the road to John McElrath Memorial Highway. And again, Billy Garrett was a big push for that, and we appreciate him doing that. And again, Adam Taylor and I kind of put our heads together and tried to figure out how we're going to make this work. And he said, hey, this is a no-brainer. And like I said, Richard Whiting was very great to help us out and put all the material together to send to Columbia, because you basically have to present it to the state legislature down there and present it to them and make them believers that, hey, this guy's worthy of having a road named after him.
And he couldn't go down there and sing now. So.
No, and they actually did it. He actually did sing down there for the state legislature years ago. He and, who else was it? Maurice Williams from Maurice Williams and the Zodiacs.
Really?
Went down there and sang, and I think, who else was it? Bill Pinkney from the Drifters. Bill Pinkney is from Sumter, South Carolina. He was the original bass singer with the Drifters. I mean, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee from South Carolina, and not a lot of people realize that. And this was a band that sold more records than Elvis at one point. The Drifters were huge back in their day.
Absolutely.
And so those 3 guys were, I mean, they're powerhouses in South Carolina, and that's some good company to have there. And of course, you got Josh Turner now, who's a huge country music guy. He's from down around Georgetown. So, and of course Darius Rucker. I mean, he's the best ambassador the University of South Carolina has.
Absolutely.
And doing really so well in Nashville now in the music and in country music. So, a lot of great musicians here in South Carolina. I'm blessed to be amongst them. I have never ever taken any credit for the success of the band, because I was blessed. I was in the right place at the right time, because the band was well established and had hit records and had jobs.
Well, what made you want to play the trumpet? Out of all the instruments, one could choose, because that was instrumental.
My dad played trumpet when he was in school,
okay.
And when you're
he had a trumpit and he said, "Here, kid, play this one."
No, we had to actually go buy a trumpet, because God knows what happened to his trumpet. Who knows where that thing is? But anyway, when you're a kid, everybody wants to be a drummer.
Right.
And so I went to the little meeting where you meet the band director and they kind of decide what you're suited for. I want to be a drummer. Mm-hmm. No, you don't need to be a drummer. And they asked me a few questions. They said, well, you need to play the trumpet. So I ended up with the trumpet. And then after going to music school and finding out, there's an art to finding out what kids are suited for, the shape of their mouth, their wind capacity, things like that. Now, my drummer friends are going to be mad at me for saying this, but the band director told me, said, we basically, kids that can't carry a tune or can't put a horn in their mouth, we put drumsticks in their hands. They feel like they could teach anybody to play drums. Now, I don't believe that, because I can't even walk and chew gum, so I surely couldn't ever play a drum set to save my life. But
the drummer is the beat, and if you
don't
have a good drummer,
yeah, that's exactly right. If you do not have a good drummer, then you're dead in the water. And we got a great drummer now. We got a new guy named Marcus Gullen, who is phenomenal, and he can play any instrument. He can sing anything. He is so talented. He does like a one-man show thing where he loops music,
right?
And he'll start out with a beat, and he'll add keyboard, and he'll pick up a guitar and add a rhythm guitar, and he'll pick up a tambourine or a cowbell, and
that's cool.
And it's like a puzzle. And when he first starts out, it's like, what is this? And then he adds something, and the more you add, the picture starts coming together, and you find out, okay, this is what this song is. But he is so good at that. He did a show at the Newberry Opera House on his own a while back, and was just phenomenal. And so he's such a good guy.
Where's he from?
He is actually from Chapin. Now, he's originally from Florida. He's originally from Orlando. In fact, he goes back and plays at the Hard Rock Hotel in Orlando during the week when the band's not on the road. So he's got 3 young kids, and so he's hustling. I mean, he's trying to take care of those kids. One
instrument that I think it's very interesting, and since we've done the blues in the schools and everything, mm-hmm. You're right. Everybody wants to play the drums or the guitar,
Yeah,
right?
that too.
Either that. I think the harmonica is one of the coolest instruments there is.
It really is.
And what I found is when you can show kids how the harmonica and who some of the young people are out there playing it, all of a sudden they got real interested in it. Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that they're listening to harmonica on a lot of records, because it's an instrument, that doesn't get a lot of flash, doesn't get a lot of recognition. But you get people like Stevie Wonder, that a master harmonica player. Huey Lewis from Huey Lewis and the News, killer harmonica player. Met him several times over the years. In fact, somebody sent me a little meme the other day on Facebook. It was somebody had taken a harmonica and taped it underneath a car, and brought it into the shop. What is that noise in the front of my car? And it was taped underneath the front of the car. And of course the mechanic pulled it out and go, here's your problem. And I sent it to Huey, and Huey thought, well, that's the best use of harmonica I've seen in a lot of years.
Well, we sure hope, Richard, this has been absolutely a blessing to sit here this afternoon and reminisce and talk about the Swingin' Medallions. They are going to be next Thursday at Lander, and it is going to be absolutely phenomenal. If you're not there, you're going to really be missing out. Get your tickets. You can get them through Lander. I agree, you probably can get them at the door if you want to get a table. And Richard, why don't you tell people where, if they would like to contribute to the scholarship, that people could contribute.
Again, if you want to give money to the scholarship, we would greatly appreciate it, because like I said, it goes to a great cause and goes to some great kids that get a great education. Music, Lander has such a great music program. People don't realize what a gym we have right here in Greenwood. You can go to lander.edu/give. There's a place there where you can make the notation that it's for the McElrath Music Scholarship. And again, you can do it by mail. The Lander Foundation, attention, McElrath Scholarship, and that's 320 Stanley Avenue, Greenwood, 29649. Every dime of this goes directly into the scholarship. The band is doing this basically because we feel like it's important. And again, we look for excuses to play in Greenwood, so this gave us one. And again, it's gonna raise some great money for a great cause.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming out this afternoon. Anything else you'd like to say before I close this out?
Thanks for everybody that supported us here in Greenwood. Like I said, people approach me all the time, want to know when we're playing close to home, and we don't get close to home often enough, and so we'd love to see some good old home folk and some familiar faces in the crowd next week. So come see us Thursday.
Absolutely. That'll be at Lander. That's going to do it for us right here. We are going to say adieu, and I'll be back tomorrow morning with more to talk about. So you stay tuned right here on WCRS. Hey, hey, baby, the Swingin' Medallions. Bye-bye, everybody.